Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed with Suzanne and Kim. Hey, lady.
Hey, how's it going? What
It's
was
going.
that? Hey. I don't know what that was.
You're pulling out your masculine side today,
Well, I've been battling that, so yeah, probably.
right? Okay, this is going to be a really super fun one because I'm going to love your face on this one. I have a client who we've worked with each other for quite some time. I've known him a really long time. He is very, this information came through a session, but I had him actually type it down so that I could read it because there was just too much and I didn't want to get it wrong and I
Mhm.
didn't want to leave anything out. So I asked him to document it and send it. So I think, just read this because it's his experience, and then I want to unleash it and really bring in some other elements to it. So it's very interesting.
Oh my
And
God, you're setting me up. I can feel this.
I'm literally gonna read it from the paper. So
Okay.
he says, so things have gotten strange, and being as you are galactic, and I have almost always been terrestrial, meaning he's very pagan. He does a lot of, Wiccan work. He's really connected to the earth energies, and we always joke that I'm the alien and he's the pagan. Okay, so I figured maybe this information I'm getting you may know a thing or two about. This is not word for word because my memory is still sort of messed up. I was trying to go to sleep and failing badly. I suddenly, for no other explanation, got my consciousness pulled out of my meat body and placed into a silver gray room with no corners.
Mm.
Everything flowed. And I remember it being a comfortable temperature, not too warm or cold. Now that I think about it, it might just be because my body was really not there. I did have a body, but it was how I see myself, not how I actually am, meaning I was skinny, long hair, perfect vision, etc. Don't we all do that, right?
The younger version.
I was seated in some type of a chair that was an extension of the floor and the wall, same color, no edges. It felt as though I had been sitting there examining the room, and my eyes suddenly locked onto a person sitting across from me. He or she was only about 4 feet away from me. The sudden appearance about made me jump out of my non-me form. This being looked much like a Christianized devil, only it had blue skin. It introduced itself, and this was the only way I could make it out as Ambassador Troy of the Council. There is a weird, hollow R rolling sound when he speaks. I remembered that its mouth did not even move, and I could feel the reverberation of the ambassador's voice in my head. Obviously, telepathic communication there. The ambassador went on to apologize for the mishap that occurred on a chronicle date and time that was far different from our own. I cannot recall what it was about. It was not really a dream. The ambassador said that they were only able to locate me in the last few Earth days. I was thankful for the mention of our time frame. As the ambassador continued, they spoke about not pulling me to them, but instead coming to me because of the mishap, or at least until they could calculate a way around the issue that presented itself. The ambassador asked me how the reboot went. They were not able to help or track the reboot. I remember the feelings of the hospital episode flowing into my consciousness thoughts, and the ambassador said, I'll explain that in a minute, by the way. The ambassador said, I see, that must have been scary for you, terrestrial. Hopefully, your new path will correct this. This session ended, and I was laying back in my bed and still awake. I was also very aware of the pain now in my body. Last night, this happened again. The same deal. Trying to fall asleep, and bam, I'm in that room again. This time, I'm laying on a table with lots of wires that are hooked up to me, but the wires were not sunk into my skin, but attached magnetically. There were several beings of various shapes and sizes and species now. All of them were wearing a metal mask, sort of like a doctor's mask. The ambassador diverted my attention to him and a very tall, beautiful blonde woman. I would call her a Nordic, but the rest I had no clue who or what they were. She introduced herself, and I couldn't even begin to figure out how to spell her name. She said she was what my terrestrial would call a scientist. Her mouth moved, so I had no reverberation echoing in my head. The two of them went on to say that the council has decided to make itself known to the citizens of Earth because Earth is in trouble. The species of Earth needed to be saved. They told me that soon we would start to see their vessels over every major city on Earth. Their first order of business is to fix the protective grid around the Earth. Second will be to reach out to the species of Earth. They showed me a bunch of schematics that appeared to show a grid around the Earth. that the inside of the moon was a huge space station, porting pods, starships, etc. I remember asking what I was and being told that I and others like me are not yet ready for that knowledge. This is where things went to an earth-based memory. The Nordics said that if I am wondering about who and what I am, I should speak with you, meaning me. She literally named you. Apparently, you are one of the very few who have woken enough to know, even if you don't currently know the answers. LOL. That is such a mind screw, and I changed that word. Apparently, you are the Oracle from the Matrix and I'm Nemo. I really have no idea. They talked about the upcoming battles with the Earth's shadow government. They called it a dark agenda government or something like that, and their allies. So I am now sitting with more questions than answers. Like, how is my 56-year-old broken body supposed to be of any help? Was I targeted by a shadow government, and that is why my body is so screwed up at 56? Am I crazy? Was I even supposed to remember everything that I did? Is this why technology comes so easy to me? I don't even know if these are good guys or bad guys using my terrestrial body for some reason. They apparently finished my rewrite. Before they returned me, they said it could be a day to several weeks before I hear from them again. And this happened on 1/21 and 22 last month. Or January, yeah. This started at 9:30ish and it was well after midnight when I came back to. You are basically the only person I can talk to about this because after my stay in the hospital, my wife and the doctors will put me in the psych ward.
Oh no.
So I did ask permission, and he said that yes, we could share it. And what I want to point out is this particular gentleman, 56, why he says he has a broken body and refers to the hospital. He has had a very, very aggressive cancer for many years, and you are aware of him now. You have figured out who he is. And he has had a very aggressive cancer and has been into the hospital having lots of chemo and radiation and things like that over quite a few years now. And amazingly, they had given him such a short span of time to live, and he is well beyond that. So, whatever is happening to this guy is really quite amazing. But this is the first time where he has ever actually encountered or experienced anything galactic. And so he was really going a little crazy. And I thought it was so fascinating that I just think it's really something to like seriously unleash. I mean, how crazy is that story, right?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so much in it that you were talking about that
Your little
I'm
pen
like
was going
taking
crazy.
some notes because even terminology for some of this is not everyday
Yeah,
terminology, right?
right.
So when you started, you said terrestrial.
Terrestrial meaning he is a very human body, a human form.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't identify him as any type of alien.
Not at this point. However, he asked who indeed he was in the biggest scope, and they said he wasn't ready for that information. Now, that said, every single solitary person in some shape or form is from the stars. We
Mhm.
literally all come in our galactic DNA through many, many different things. When he says Suzanne's a galactic and he's a terrestrial, he has many, many more past life recognitions of being on planet, doing pagan things, having all kinds of human form incarnations, etc. And I don't have any of those. And so that's where he has that definition difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and but they told him to come to you.
Right. And
Right?
so, yeah. And so I think that's first and foremost because I think he needed some validation that A, he wasn't crazy,
Okay.
and B, I go and work on ship a lot, and those actual depictions and descriptions were very, very similar to what I have encountered numerous times.
Hmm.
And I think that they wanted him to be comfortable and know that he wasn't aggressively being hurt or taken or hijacked or anything in that regard. They also know that I can scan him because he's an ongoing client of mine and a Vibe Tribe member. I know him really well. I've done lots of things with him. I can scan him in 2 seconds to see if he's got anything going on or not going on. And I think that was part of the concern because oftentimes we can have really crazy stuff happen in our dream state, and we don't know if we've just been jumped or hijacked or if this is just bullshit or what it is.
Right.
And for him, he was not in full dream space at all. And he's got gifts. This guy's got gifts. I mean, he's psychically talented and very sentient and very empathic.
Mhm.
And I think they were making sure that he didn't think that he was making things up for his own sanity, right?
Right. So what was the part about, when you start at the beginning, they were talking about the mishap, that the reboot and the mishap, and we're sorry about that. Like what was that that they were
Yeah,
trying to do?
and again, this is my opinion and take what resonates, and I can only give him what I get also. I think that they have been working on this particular gentleman for some time, and this is the first time he connected the dot and felt it and experienced it.
Mm,
A lot of times, when we get there's a difference between being taken and being taken or being taken and going.
right.
Okay. And meaning sometimes the alien beings or light beings, we'll call them aliens just for a overall umbrella. But it's such a silly word, really. But oftentimes, um, I'm sorry, I was getting dinged on this side there, caught my attention. Oftentimes, we will willingly go. Like I go. And so I can go onto ship or I can bring ship to me. So
Mhm.
I can be in my own room doing work on myself and I can still even here be aware and in my body and I can feel at the same time that I'm on the ship. There's other times where I actually feel like I go on the ship. So they can come to you and you can still feel like you're on the ship or you can go on to the ship. And so it sounds like that the first time they were coming to him to make it a little more comfortable, yet he could feel the ship and see the ship. And then the second time, he could actually really, really feel like he was more on ship. That was the 2 nights in a row. Prior to that, I believe that they have been working on him and studying him and trying to figure out what is happening. Now, oftentimes, they will look at humans that have things that are things like cancer or things that are happening to their body because it's not like we're a lab rat, but they're trying to understand also what is happening and what they can do. And there's been many, I believe, miracle healings by off-planet species that we aren't even aware of in dream space. Those are those, wow, miracle healings. I don't know what happened. Everything was just fine, because we can do a lot of work out in that universe and those multiverses, and it can affect these bodies. And so I think that they were trying to reboot him, and the time matrix wasn't lining up correctly. And remember, we've got a lot, what they were referring to, we've got a lot of grids and a lot of um, you know, obstacles in the way of letting their help and their light and their services in. And I think that now they're finding that the light quotient is different and they're accessing him easier. So I
Mhm.
think that that's what they were referring to, that it just didn't, they weren't successful with what they were trying to do the first time.
Well, and his own blocks or beliefs or whatever could also block some of that, right? Like,
Sure, for sure.
yeah, like it could be a combination of both or
And
one or the
and
other.
he's got great spiritual connections to his higher self, his soul, etc. But we're also human. To be dragging our butt through years and years of chemotherapy and cancer scares and in and out of hospitals, and now I've got to do this, and I mean, you think you're so out of your body, and yet you aren't, but you are. So I'm sure it's easy for them to access some of that stuff, but I don't think the timing was aligned, is what they were referring to, in my opinion.
Mhm. So you think that they were potentially working with him because of his cancer situation
I
to
think I
sharpen
think
him?
that's a piece of it. I
Okay.
also think that he's an activator. I also think that he does a ton of work in his dream space, meaning many of us, when we go to sleep, we
Mhm.
access our higher self in our dream space through what we know as our silver cord, and we can do a lot of multidimensional work in that space in the 4D realms and get into all different realms. And I think many, many of us are doing that, and most people aren't aware that they even do it.
Yeah.
Some people are starting to become more aware. And I think this is the part of the process for this gentleman is getting more in touch with the galactic side of who he is so that his earth information can assist them better because he already knows how to tap into earth energies, earth beings, paganism, getting into the frequencies of the Schumann, understanding how to go into the 2D elemental kingdoms, et cetera, et cetera. These are things that a lot of the galactics won't necessarily know how to do. And so by utilizing a person like this who already has that kind of experience and that knowledge base is important for them at this time.
It's so interesting because when I think about him after figuring out who you're talking about, uh,
Mhm.
I have always thought because of the pagan part of it and some of I always think about dragons and like just kind of magical, but
Very
then
much.
there can be some darkness there too sometimes. Like
Yes,
you have the light and the dark both
very
mixed.
much. Very much.
Yeah.
And this particular person has struggled with that. There has been a lot of dark energies. I've worked with him several times where dark energies have found him. We're following him. Dark-eyed people were following him. The darkness that isn't the good dark, because there's good dark that he works with generally, and then the dark, the ick dark can slip in if we're not careful. And when someone's that sick, they can kind of get hijacked or jumped. And so I believe he's really balanced right now and doing really well considering how much his physical form has gone through in the last several years. So I don't believe that any of this is a dark agenda or a trickster agenda. If indeed, and everyone take what resonates from this. If you believe it, great. If you don't, have it a fun story. But there are many, many, many people going on ship, and many people are remembering it. And I am having more and more and more clients starting to say, I, I think I go on a, and I'm like, it's okay. And then they're like, okay, I think I go on a ship. And they
And
kind of scratch their head. It's like, I don't know if I want to say this,
how many
So
sessions with people that you're actually on ship?
yeah, and I mean, I've done tons of it, and they can feel it. They can feel med beds. I mean, lots of times when I'm basically holographically working with a person in what we would consider something similar to a med bed, it feels like they're in a MRI machine, and they can feel the actual going on, and they feel like they went through the donut machine, and it's tons and tons of lights in their face when their eyes are closed, and I've had that many times over the years, myself included, and so. I don't think that we have to think this stuff is that crazy because this is getting closer and closer and closer. And it will be happening most likely within most of our lifetimes that are listening to these in some way, shape, or form because it already is. And so it just depends on how much the powers that be, still manufacture things that aren't true and twist the truth. So we'll
Right,
see how this all
right.
plays out, right?
Yeah, and I feel like it's because I have done this before, and when you were talking about the room,
Mhm.
with no corners and the chair and all of it's like I've done this before, and um,
Remember
not that
yours,
I
and
saw it
you
really, but
remember you remembered the whole hallway. You remembered walking down, and we don't talk during sessions. Remember, anyone that's listening
uh,
into this, I'm a full telepath, and I don't talk during my sessions. And I get what I get, and I write it down, and then the client will have that experience. And we collaborated after that one. And yeah, you walked down the whole hallway. You saw the rooms. You went into the chair.
yeah.
Remember that was a lot. So.
And it wasn't scary. It wasn't
Mm,
threatening, and I feel like these experiences are prepping people for what's to come.
yes.
So the more people that they like upgrade, work with, and maybe raising frequency. I don't know what exactly some of this is, but that when all of a sudden there are spaceships over every major city in the country, country in the world, that it's not so crazy and out of, like there'll be people that will be like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I expected this.
And
So
I understand and believe that completely also that this is the process of we would call it a soft open in a restaurant business or a retail store. It's a soft open, let's make this kind of show up and see how that feels and see how people are reacting. And I think the soft open is also for people who are going to be holding space for others who are going to lose their marbles because
yeah,
there will be a lot of people that think this is like terror, from the skies. And it depends again on how our military and government choose to position statement a lot of this stuff because we can really probably have this or this. It's all dependent upon what the brainwashing is. So it's critical that most people that are having experiences really sit with it and decide for yourself.
hmm,
Even in listening to this, decide for yourself. Does this resonate to me or not? Does this really mean that my belief system is going to shut this off immediately because that's stupid and silly because that's what I grew up with? Or does it mean like, maybe I could think that this might be real because my stomach sort of says yes?
yeah,
So go into those feel centers and allow these things to be a possibility.
yeah.
It's kind of like the hangman card and the reverse card in the tarot open up to new ways of thinking,
Mhm.
open up to, reverse everything that you've been thought or taught and see if there's another thought in there that might be a possibility. And I think this is what's going to bridge a lot of the craziness when indeed this does happen in a more obvious way.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I just jumping into my head, Hollywood has made a lot of scary movies around this,
Yeah.
and it creates a lot of fear. So when you hear this type of story, immediately it's kind of fearful for someone who's never experienced it or, I mean, I can see why. It's already
Yeah.
been out there for how many years, all of
And I
the
think one of the
propaganda.
things that was interesting, there are councils, in my opinion, because I work with them all the time. There are many, many, many ambassadors from many, many species because that's how this works.
Mhm.
And we have ambassadors on our planet that go elsewhere, etc. So to me, all this stuff is very common because I've studied and seen it and heard it for years and years. The other common denominator in here, and again, this is why they do a check with me so he doesn't think he's nuts, is the Nordic. And the Nordic actual scientist is oftentimes a woman for whatever reason, which by the way, I love. And they are oftentimes described as very beautiful and very, blonde and very Nordic looking, and oftentimes in their like kind of one piece spandex suit sort of a thing with maybe an emblem of sorts. But they're very scientific, and lots of times the council person will be there in conjunction with the scientists because they are indeed doing something scientific on behalf of the organization. And so this particular one did not say a council for who, which is fine. A lot of times we do hear the Troys or that kind of seems to be a common name. So does that mean that he maybe heard it on a podcast and just made it up? Who knows and who cares? That isn't even a thing to me because we're going to have the experience and our brain's going to jump in and manipulate everything anyway, right? And I'm here to say these things do pop up more and more and more frequently now.
Mhm.
And be more aware without shutting your brain off immediately when you're seeing, videos. Yes, videos can be manipulated. Yes, TikTok is probably half bullshit, but it's also showing lots of craft. And there are hundreds and thousands of people who are having experiences, even within the last year, of multitudes of craft. And I think it's time for us to just start to have more conversations to bring this forward. And I applaud him allowing us to tell that much of his story in conjunction with how difficult it's been for him to be a human.
So associate this back to our contracts coming in to be a human. So is this one of those decision points in your path that maybe wasn't planned, or do you think this was something he was contracting to do coming down here?
Meaning you're awakening in a connection with the terrestrial or
Yeah.
extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
In my situation, in my personal situation, I remember being 8 years old and looking in the mirror just as a kid, and I heard completely clearly, "You're here on planet on mission. We will activate you when it's time." I
Okay.
completely remember that whole verbiage. And I, as an 8-year-old, said, okay. And I 100% understood it without even going, what the heck does that mean? I 100% at 8 years old remember that clear as a bell. And so my entire life, I knew that I would be activated when it was time. Now, activations mean several different things. Activations can be downloads of information. They can be upgrades in your body. They can be changing things in your biology. They can be doing the big work that I moved into. It can be all kinds of things. Oftentimes, people like me will go through many, many what we would call initiation phases, and they will bring you higher and higher in your frequency, and you will have more and more access to more and more things.
Hmm.
So that's a really typical, I think, a starseed worker that came in to do the work. And I didn't ever get taught how to do my work. I just knew. They downloaded me, they taught me. I understood everything in meditative, not even out of body meditative, just in body and out of body meditative, instruction. Now, when we have a gentleman like this, he has a different sort of a contract in that he contracted to be in the earth realm. I'm the multiverse realm. So he's in the earth realm. And yes, very contracted to know the pig and know the land, work as a witch and a good witch, work with the dark energies, understand the dragon energies, et cetera, et cetera, and really come across the dark forces I have a lot of clients that work with the dark forces, and that not in a bad way, in a balancing way. And that definitely to me is a soul contract. Are they aligned in their contract to get initiated or upgraded at a time? In my opinion, yes, but this will always be dependent on the collective in terms of how many of the collective are awakening and how fast is our ascension process going.
Hmm.
So it doesn't say like, oh, January 21st of 2025, you're going to go boom. It
Hmm.
has, like they said, it has to reboot. It has to reboot your body. You have to be in a better space for your body, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of conditions in there, but generally the answer would be yes.
Okay. That's so fascinating. I never, I mean, in all the times that we've talked about these things or experienced them, I've never thought about the contract and how it fits into that.
And remember, not every single person walking on this planet right now is contracted to do, terrestrial, extraterrestrial work. Does
Right.
that make anybody cooler or better? No, it actually makes it very difficult. But there is a knowing and I think that there's such an honor to follow through on what you know you're supposed to be doing when you are one of those people. And it can be a very lonely journey. It can be very confusing. And again, this is why a lot of experiences like this isn't the first time in people's dream states they have been told to find me. And people that don't even know me have been told to find me. And because they have had that in that dream space, because I do that work and I understand that and they don't have to feel crazy.
Yeah.
So, this is hard. It's still very hard. You know,
Well, I've watched you over so many years of not having a lot of peers that are doing what you're doing, right? So who do you go to when,
right.
you're trying to figure this stuff out or make sure that, or just doing that validation of I'm not crazy. I'm
We
not.
run to the cabin and we drink a bunch of wine and stare at the lake.
Right.
It's it's um it's funny because I am finding more and more young men and women coming forward, that
Mhm.
14, 15, 16, that are really having extraterrestrial knowings and fears. And if they're not in a home where this is being cultivated, that can be extremely scary. But what happened the other day is I had a young kid's mother in here and she was concerned about the kid, but then lo and behold, she always did it when she was a kid. And this is oftentimes how this works. We'll have a lineage line of, starseed stuff. I don't particularly have that, but in these other cases, it's oh, I always saw stuff when I was a kid, but I shut it down. Now my kid's seeing it. And it's like, exactly, it's time for you to reactivate.
Yeah.
So again, these are contractual in some biology families. A lot of UFO being taken, especially when it comes to special ops or government or, secret space program, etc. These are lineage lines that are really deep and oftentimes nefarious. And those are very much not only contractual from a soul basis, but from a lineage line basis. And
Mhm.
that can get really sticky and scary. And, so no, it isn't, these aren't accidents. They're happening because people have signed up for that.
And to me, it doesn't seem like some of those contracts you're just talking about in the lineage it's not a choice. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah. Especially if it's nefarious. Like I,
However, there is more and more people breaking away from that now, depending on what kind of podcasts you listen to and or things you study. There is more and more survivors coming forward.
Mhm.
And, even 10 years ago, that was not even acceptable because they would be, they'd be found. And
Mhm.
now, because social media is so rampant and instantaneous, it's too risky to do anything as a follow-up when someone blows the whistle, right?
Right.
So it is breaking the lineage line of the nefarious side of this agenda as well, the more that we talk about these things online.
Is it because the veil is lifting and the energies changing or frequencies changing that their memories are coming back around this if they've been, wiped?
Yeah,
Um,
it's everything. So this is such a complicated answer and question altogether because it is a combination, and this is cosmic clock timing. This is, multitudes of multidimensionals coming together, portals opening, land activating, the earth coming back online, the body changing from, carbon to crystal, being able to access things because the grids are down, because grid workers have, repaired them, et cetera, et cetera. It's like everything. And it's all happening at once. Quantum is very difficult to talk about because it's like this all happening at the same time. So you can't just say, oh, it's just because of blah, blah. When things are having more light quotient, again, I used to teach it like a layer cake with frosting in between each one. There's no frosting anymore. There's hardly even an egg wash. We can jump from dimension to dimension. We just talked about that on another podcast. It is accessible now, whereas this was not accessible before. That's one of the biggest reasons the memories are coming back.
okay. Okay. That makes sense.
And we can astral travel easily. I'm back to much more astral traveling and remote viewing again, where I did that awesome as a kid. Never even thought, yeah, I thought everybody did that. I didn't know that everybody didn't fly out. So, it's like, what? You don't do that? So,
If
now
I'm busy playing with my Barbies, you're remote viewing, whatever. I'm like,
yeah.
seriously.
So it is coming back easier and quicker. And now, of course, we're having these babies, like in my case, grandbabies that are just blowing our minds open because they don't even think twice about seeing an alien or talking about an alien because that just comes out of their mouth, you know?
Oh
So,
yeah, especially a couple of your grandbabies.
yeah, a couple of mine have just been really unbelievable. It's like, holy bananas, that's some serious stuff going on here. So, and exciting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is all about unity. This is all about eventually the ascension process is to unify not only just everyone on this planetary system, but unify the species with the planet, unify everything with our past lives, our other lives, our lineage, our soul pods. It is oneness. This is the law of one is coming back into play, and it was held hostage forever.
Yeah.
And this is purposeful, and it is happening for a reason. The galactics had a hard time, or the aliens had a hard time getting into our system because the matrix, that's why he made the joke about the Oracle and the Neo. The matrix itself was so convoluted, reversed, and poisoned that a lot of the help could not come.
Hmm.
I mean, I know my guides can come much easier now than they even did 4 years ago, or God forbid, 10, 15, 20 years ago. They could not help. And oftentimes they would say, I would ask, can I, I need assistance on this or whatever. And they're like, we can't, we can't. And I would just sit there and think, what do you mean you can't? You're supposed to be like, you're supposed to know everything with your technology. And it isn't the technology. They just couldn't get into the system. It was like a blackout.
Wow, that's so because it's changed so much just in
Yeah.
the time that I've been going down this spiritual journey.
And it's not done. It's going to continue to change at a very, very rapid pace. And the quicker people allow themselves to traverse dreams like this man did and say, I know it's not a dream and I don't have to be embarrassed to share it, which I'm again thankful that he allowed us to do it, that this is courageous, right? I mean, this is really great that we are having the ability to talk about it and blow it open a little bit.
Well, I
So,
think all of us are going to have that choice as things become or made, viewable by us or we experience that we're going to have to make the choice. Do we want to sit in fear with this?
yeah.
Or do we want to open up our minds and allow ourselves to discern what feels good or what doesn't? Because it's there. It's
And the
going to
heart space, Kim, is the
happen.
most important because everything's telepathic. Like you said, oftentimes when you're having these experiences, it's your heart that is in charge of everything. Your heart knows when you're scared or not. Your brain can go off in 2 seconds. I mean, I say all the time, I've worked in this realm for so long. And if I come down into this healing room and the day I see all sitting in a chair, I would like lose my shit. But I would probably come right back in immediately because then my telepathy and my heart would kick in.
Yeah.
But my brain would still go, oh, I've always wanted this, but oh my God, right? So, I mean, and this actually happened to me one time when I had a Draco situation and a lot of the reptilians came in. And my brain felt really scared, but when I dropped into my heart, I was perfectly fine.
Mhm.
So we are, again, working as individuals and as a species to open up heart space. And the more heart space that opens, it changes the frequency for them to indeed help. This includes angels and fairies and ascended masters and you name it, right? Plants, animals, the animal kingdom, the totems. Everything can come in easier and easier when we open up heart space, but our brains will do that initial knee jerk reaction of, holy crap, we're
Mhm.
not safe, especially if we've been programmed to think that. And
Right.
you did hit the nail on the head. You know, Hollywood hasn't done us too many favors, in that at all. I just watched Independence Day again the other day and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
this is what we think about. So all terrestrial extraterrestrials maybe aren't good for us. Absolutely not, because there's a hell of a lot of humans on this planet that aren't good for us.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of benevolent beings that are here on behalf of us and always have been and always will be because we are an important piece in the big structure here. And so it is to me it's always been a very comfortable and real subject for me. I think it's just fun that it's being more shared right now.
I agree, and you're right. You hit it. It's very courageous to put yourself out there to be vulnerable, sharing this kind of information. I mean, just for him to even write it down for you,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of guts.
And remember, the internet or YouTube even like we're on and God knows TikTok and you name it. I watched the whole thing on TikTok. Somebody sent me just recently about a gal who channels the Galactics, and they're all coming in March. And just wait, they're coming in March because they were trying to in January and something happened, and they're coming in March. And I mean, I'm like, well, okay, does that mean that's really going to happen? I don't know. If they do, great. If they don't, I'm not worrying about it either way.
Mm-mm.
But there are many people out there that are also spewing so much stuff on the galactics and the federations and who's the right federation and who's the wrong one and who's the dangerous one and who's the this one. This is again why it is imperative that each individual, when they choose, if they choose, works with their own heart space to monitor discernment and say, something about that interview just does not resonate.
Right.
That is not working for me. Or, holy crap, I'm listening to him or her. And my entire inner knowing, not my brain, my inner knowing is going, I know this, I already know this. So it's even more than a cognitive knowing, it's a sentient knowing, meaning my body reacts in a way usually that is so filled with love that it's overflowing. And that's when you know something is correct, especially when it comes to a galactic realm or an ascended master realm, because it is very loving when you are working in the benevolent area. Have I seen the dark side of the galactics? Hell yeah. I've had enough of those. Thank you very much as well. Do you know the difference? Of course, because it's not that much difference than the jerk at the party and the nice guy at the party,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, you get that feel
Yeah.
like,
You're
whoa,
not going to
stay away
sit at
from
a human
that. I'm
party
gonna
and
go
go,
over here.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, right? Yeah.
Right.
We make
Yeah,
it
that
a
totally
really
makes
big
sense.
deal. It's so weird, isn't it? We make it such a big deal, but anyway, well, it is kind of a big deal.
I know. Who knows? A
Yeah.
year from now, we're gonna be like, "Psh, whatever."
Yeah. Right? I think it's
Yeah,
great. I
whatever.
think it's really cool. Okay. Anything else in his story that we forgot? Because you kind of were.
Um, no, I think that the biggest thing was I was really curious about what was the reboot and the mishap, which we went over. Oh, the ambassador was interesting.
Yeah.
So we don't know for who though, right? You already
Yep,
said
didn't
that?
say. And oftentimes an ambassador will be for a federation, a council, a race. There's many, many ambassadors for many, many different things. There's ambassadors on our planet working for other planetary systems and vice versa. Sometimes the humans will go off planet. I've been literally astral traveled to Galactic Federation or Federation of Worlds, whichever one. I don't even know because I don't care that much to tell you the truth. But I have been in situations where I have been in really big council meetings and or galactic meetings of all of the races, and you can feel that. You know that this is a real thing when you're in those situations, and so many, many, many kinds of ambassadors all over the place doing the work, and so you're doing public relations. It's not that much different from here. We got public relations, we got military, we have exploration, we have science, we have, so ambassadors, oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. Scientists, I would hope so, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
No,
I
I
think
think this was really an interesting story, and hopefully people will, go ahead and put comments or questions out there
for
about this
sure. If you're going to
because
comment on anyone, do it on
it's
this one.
so much bigger than, the one
Yeah,
story, and there's so
yeah.
much to go into. Um, yeah, it's crazy, but
Awesome.
very, very fascinating. That's
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
on behalf of my client, I thank him one more time for sharing and having the courage to do that. And this is one of those ones that you want to take to heart and let it resonate or not. And if it's just chill, great, fun entertainment, make it that. And if it's not, keep it in the back of your head and be aware that a lot of people are terrified to share their experiences because, like he ended it, they're going to put me in the psych ward. I've said that for probably 15 years. I get that feeling. It's terrifying or embarrassing, or you think you're nuts. And when you're in the moment, you're very clear. When you come back into this meat and bone existence, you're like, holy shit, what was that? What? So this is something that you really do want to find someone, some group. We talk a lot about this in our membership on Vibe Tribe. I do a lot of galactic work on sessions because that's what I do. I mean, I do obviously other work, but I think that a lot of starseeds do end up in my office because they think they're nuts, and you don't have to think you're crazy. You really don't. And
No.
so yeah, take it with a grain of salt or not. So give
Yeah,
us a
there are many people out there experiencing the same thing, and um, it's important to put yourself out there
Mhm.
if you choose, because you will attract people who are experiencing the same kinds of things, where you do have a group of people or friends or whatever that you can actually talk out loud about these things with. Because,
And abduction is a completely different experience, and maybe
yeah.
we'll have a talk on that sometime because abduction is a terrifying process for many.
Mhm.
And that is a PTSD kind of a thing. And that takes a whole different kind of therapy. Being, ripped out of my home and, feeling like I'm stalked and terrorized and, examined and poked and prodded and that's a whole different thing. I do not experience that, and I don't condone that for my body to experience that. I say oftentimes I do not consent to abduction. I will not consent.
Mhm.
I've never had those feelings, but I also don't go into that realm and think about it a lot because I just don't want to give it energy. Does it happen to other people? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%. So if that's the case too, and you need help, get your help. Do your EMDR, your biofeedback, have your trauma release, do all of the stuff that you need to do if you choose to get that stuff out and not think you're crazy because it will drive you bonkers.
Oh, it'll just eat you up. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Well,
Right.
cool. I love that. I'm glad we shared that one. Maybe hit the subscribe, the share, tell somebody about this story, have a talk about aliens if you choose to. And until next time, on behalf of both of us, Cosmic Hugs.
Goodbye.